Do you think that business in general respects salespeople?
It is highly regarded, highly complex, and you're paid for it in line with your experience and the problems you're solving. The people at Forbes don't know what they're doing.
Forbes is blind as because everybody hates salespeople.
Everybody hates salespeople. It's so funny you say that.
Do you think that business in general respects salespeople? And let me provide some context. So I was talking to JR, and he was like, "Kay, you think they give a shit about salespeople or the developers or the engineers that actually develop in the products?" And I was like, "Well, where I currently work, I definitely think that the engineers are more respected or have more quote unquote power, for lack of a better term. But until something's sold, nobody gets paid or nothing gets built or something's built and nobody can communicate effectively how that thing or that widget helps solve a problem and all the nuances in between just looking at the product or service. I think that you really don't have a successful organization. Yes, there's ads. Yes, you can automate stuff. But for the most part, I think salespeople are relevant, but would love to get like your take and perspective. Because everybody hates salespeople.
Everybody hates salespeople. It's so funny you say that. I think there's this saying that kind of misses the mark, which is, if we build it, they will come. That's not true. That's not true in almost anything that you do. If you build it and you hire salespeople, they'll come and they'll sell what you build. That's sort of my modified version of that saying. You can have the smartest people go out there and invent, innovate, build, but you actually need somebody to go sell that, right? So let's just say you are first in the market, right? People are coming after you because you've got that one product or service that nobody has, right? You got first mover advantage. How long does that last? Not that very long. Like, how many monopolies do we know? Not that many, right? So then you got to think, well, there are other smart people that could do exactly the same thing in a different way. And now what we've created is competition, right? So now if you're competing, then what's your value really, right? So is it going to be a race to the price floor where everybody's going to undercut everyone else? Or are we going to try to find value and differentiate and have somebody paid the same or more for a similar product or our similar product? How do we do that? We do that with salespeople. Now, you can argue that, we've got the most educated consumer today than at any time in history, right? You can go and you can say, hey, that new iPhone 13 came out. Fantastic. They have a marketing company that actually does this. They handle all the marketing in their retail locations, on their website. In all the billboards you see that say this photo was shot on an iPhone 13 Pro. And then they still need retail locations. They still need account managers. They still need account executives like ourselves. So you have to ask yourself, well, it is probably the most perfect product that dominates the market. The second place competitor is nowhere near what an Apple iPhone can do. And so if they still need salespeople, then you have to argue that most products probably need salespeople, right? And so it is one hand washing the other, right? It's understanding that unless you have a monopoly, unless you operate in a monopoly and you operate in a non-compete fashion, then you're going to need to differentiate if you want to avoid a commodity sale, right? A pricing war to all the way to the bottom, right? I need a smart person to invent something so I can go sell it. And then as I sell it, we can get better, and then we can go back to the smart person and innovate and make our product even better, right? So it's very cyclical, and it continues to grow that way.
To add to your point, I think, maybe some smart young founder would be like, I don't need salespeople. I'm just going to just create the best product, or I'll just create the product and market and advertise, which may be true in some scenarios. Yeah, I mean, notice how I caveated that. True, maybe true in some scenarios. Because what I always find is even when people way smarter than me say, oh, this should be easy, any dummy could use it. I as the sales dummy, I'm like, bro, like I can't figure this shit out. And I'm pretty decent with technology. So how do you expect a new customer that has never interfaced with the software or how it works to figure it out? And I think that's where we come in, right? Just like the nuances, like the in-between, like understanding like how the human mind actually works and how to really solve problems and speaking to somebody in their terms and translating the technical jargon speak for someone that's trying to solve a problem.
I absolutely agree. I think because we were talking about this earlier, why is there a stigma against sales, right? What people are used to in terms of their experience with salespeople is on a personal level, right? Like consumers on a personal level where you may go out to a retail location and buy something for yourself, your family, your home. And so you're not buying for a large organization, right? Maybe folks that are specific in their organization, considered in procurement, or professional buyers in large quantities for large organizations. We're not talking about those people. We're talking about the average consumer is really dealing with inexperienced salespeople, right? To kind of bundle everybody up and say, we don't like salespeople because of my experience, is like saying, we don't like piano players because we're only used to listening to 6-year-old piano players that just started playing piano. If your experience with salespeople is on a personal consumer level, well, you're dealing with a lot of people that are just starting out, right? You're dealing with people that do not need a specialized skill, certificate, or diploma to get into our industry. You're dealing with people that don't have a barrier to entry to go sell consumer goods. And so you're going to deal with a lot of people that are not experienced in the field. Now, as you graduate to what you described as enterprise sales, we are, some of us that have been in the industry solving big problems for big corporations, dealing with B2B or B2C, and by C I mean corporation, B2G, to selling to government. We're solving big problems. In some cases, we're uncovering problems and challenges that even the buyer is not aware of. When we're uncovering this and documenting it, we're finding pain points that either exist or could exist in the future, right? So in some cases, we're solving problems that haven't even happened yet, right? So if you think about insurance, that's what insurance does. It solves a problem in the future. If that's what we're doing for a living, right? So our level of sales is really separated from this large pool of consumer sales, right? So as it relates to this article is really talking about the latter, right? It's the complex sales of technology sales that we're talking about, and it is highly regarded, highly complex, and you're paid for it in line with your experience and the problem you're solving. So it's definitely a great industry and great job to get into, and I encourage as many people to get into it as possible.